The blankness before you is what I would like to call the end of inquiry. It represents the very limits of what could possibly be known. But to bring it down from high abstraction, these limits can be exemplified by the following idea. No matter how obvious whatever thing may be, one thing will always be clear. It'll always just be an assumption. Just about anything humanity could possibly know about the world has, is, and always will be nothing but a set of assumptions. And this especially applies to this project. But just as assumptions are the end of inquiry, I believe that they're also the beginning. Inquiry begins with observation, followed by asking questions. Asking questions implies whatever you're talking about is a real thing. And by observing something, one can't help but to assume that that thing is actually there. As we move forward in these presentations, not only am I going to keep making more assumptions, but I also plan on pushing the idea of assumptions as far as I possibly can. And to do this, we return one more time to etymology. What exactly does it mean to assume? By searching, I find to arrogate, that is, to claim for oneself without right, to take upon oneself, obtain in addition, to suppose, take for granted without proof as basis of an argument, and a couple of others that are interesting and very relevant, but these will derail the presentation if I were to go into them. And instead of going over each of these in painstaking detail, I'll jump straight to the point. This is an assumption, or at least, how I choose to depict it. The beginning and end of all inquiry, and the building blocks of human knowledge. But what if I took it one step further? What if the ground of all knowledge was right there in front of each of us? What if all things seen, felt, heard, and known were assumed? To go further, what if they're not only assumed? What if they themselves are assuming? That is to say, what if all things took other things upon themselves naturally? What if organisms assumed light, sound, and sustenance? What if planets and stars assumed smaller masses upon them, granting them their rounded shape? What if atoms and their various particles mutually assumed with various other atoms, with each of their particles assuming in varying degrees of strength, speed, and local distance? What if all processes were the result of assumption? What if all processes were all just if? A supposed function of assumption. And what if we let if just be the point? Well, you just get one big old if. And that's precisely the point. But if I have a point, what exactly is it for? What's the point of the point? A curious question and a valid concern. If one makes a point, it would have to, ideally, go somewhere. Well, let's cut to the chase. This rhythm, right here, is what I'll be using to relay everything else in this project. Let this rhythm depict the principle of animation, the law of motion, the rule of process, conducting bodies, people, beings of all varieties, forward into life and all that it holds. This, what I've chosen to depict, is what I opt to call the life function. And it will be, without a doubt, my greatest assumption.